Do you think rugby can learn anything from football?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. No.
I hate football. The last time I went to a football match, it was tribal. It was awful.
I think football can learn a lot from rugby.
I think it's definitely the other way around.
Rugby is the hooligan sport played by gentlemen, and football is the gentleman's sport played by hooligans.
You can't drink in the stands. You can't sit with the opposition. They don't respect the ref. So I'm not really too sure what they could learn, to be fair. Would you like to add anything there?
As a player of both?
I think rugby's the better sport. I prefer playing football more, but rugby's more fun to watch.
We're not very good play actors, so we don't really get that far. I guess they got a huge organisation worldwide, and what we could do with opening up rugby more worldwide.
Looking around here at the moment, there's so many people coming to this big game, and they're all very well behaved. So I still think it's actually probably football can still learn a lot more from rugby, though, unfortunately, in terms of crowd behaviour and just general enjoyment of the game.
The sportsmanship in rugby is miles above football. Just the amount of friendliness we've got between all the players, the different things. We've got different shirts on. He supports Ireland, I'm supporting England. There's no hostility at all. I feel like that's so much better.
Football can learn things from rugby. I think the crowd's a lot more, a lot friendlier at a rugby pitch. I think and I think there's too much money in football, if I'm being honest. I think it's spoiled the game a little bit, So the one thing I think they do well in rugby, which they're not so good at in football, is the refereeing. That's much better, I think, in rugby.
And what it's all about in rugby is the camaraderie and the friendship and the community engagement. We're here from Ireland specifically to meet friends, and there's no problems, and it's just whoever wins, wins. And I think on the football side, perhaps there's a little bit of kind of maybe antagonism between different supporters, but it just doesn't exist in rugby.
We get the train together, we can all bond over it. We were at the station and people were like, oh, we're supporting the other team, but oh, good luck. And it's more of a community in a way.
Well, I do think the popularity of football, the fact that children are out in parks playing football. I work in quite a rough secondary school, and all the kids join together to play football, and I do think that is a really good side to football.
If England win today, we'll doff our hat, and that's the thing about rugby. And I don't think that football has that.
The friendship of the rugby players, we've just come here and we bumped into the Irish supporters, and everybody gets on, good banter, just much more friendlier atmosphere. There's not so much tribal aggression, and it's just a good day out, really.
And I think the respect piece is something that certainly football could pick up a leaf from. I think they're both, intense games, both, but you do get a much friendlier atmosphere, and I think, particularly afterwards, before, where you see people mixing and drinking, and, that's the way it should be. Sometimes the rivalries in football get in the way of that.
I feel like it's more of a gentleman's game, if anything. It's more. Football feels like you're just cheating the whole time, to be honest. Don't want to diss football too much, but I prefer rugby.
There's more tactical injuries in football, whereas rugby is actually physical. Whereas with football, I think, it's a very tactical game. They fall over and they get an owie very easily.
It's an easier game, I think, to get into. As a kid, it's everyone plays football. You can just go to your local park and play football. You only need a few of you to play it. With rugby, it's a bit more about the actual. You need the right positions and all that. And it's not the sort of thing you can just go to the park and play. I don't think rugby, whereas football is.
In places like Wales and New Zealand, rugby is the national sport, whereas here football is obviously much bigger. Do you think there's anything in that respect that rugby could learn in terms of promoting itself?
Yeah, I think at a grassroots level, probably, that's one thing football does have an edge on. And I think the volume of clubs that children can join. I coach grassroots football. Rugby is much rarer, and it's not necessarily as accessible, I think, for children. I think that's probably part of it when you then look at the comparisons to American football and how widespread it is, both at schools and at a grassroots level. And I think that's something that football's done very well over the last probably 20 years, and the whole DNA, FA DNA that runs all the way through, which is where the sides obviously got better as well. So that is one thing that probably rugby could learn from, and to enable greater accessibility, I think.